means we are not under threat, we being the American public, right? The Ukraine, they've been attacked. That's too bad, but that's not really us. So how can we claim self-defense? Well, just war tradition says that's insufficient. Like boundaries, it's a very Westphalian thing. Augustine wasn't talking, about international boundaries in the way that we would talk about them. So because just war tradition predates that, just war tradition, I think, is best understood as saying, look, there are times where you simply intervene to protect the innocent, just as if you or I were walking down the street and we saw somebody being innocently assaulted. We ought to intervene, and how we ought to intervene will depend on the strength we have and the other options that are available, all sorts of things. But we have the authority to be able to tell Putin no. And I think we have the authority, I'm not going to say anything about capacity in the moment, we have the authority to stop Putin from doing what he's doing if we believe, with good reason, that what he's doing is sufficiently wrong that it warrants being stopped. Okay? So we have the right authority. Do we have a just cause? And here's where it gets tricky, because I've got Russian friends who will probably email me if they happen to watch this, and they will give me the justifying reasons for why they were right to launch their invasion, their unjust, aggressive invasion.
Right.
But I think most of the Western international community looks at that and says the sovereign space of Ukraine was unjustly invaded. Innocent people are being aggressed against, and here we can say innocent people, not simply civilians, but because the Ukrainian military is an innocent party to this, suffering an unjust attack. Russian soldiers do not have the moral right nor the legal right to kill Ukrainian soldiers. So at this point, all those people in the Ukraine, even the ones who are fighting the Russians, are innocent under this understanding of what it means to fight a just war. So we have a just cause. The innocent are being assaulted. They deserve to be defended. An injustice has been wrecked. It deserves to be rectified. And there is an evil going on that deserves to be overturned. Would we have the right intention? This is a weird thing, because it asks you to kind of get into the interiority of the nation. So it's to some degree a self-check. If I'm President Biden, why am I going to war? Do I just want to stick it to Putin? Do I want a rise or a bump in the polls, in my approval rating, things like that? Those would be unjustified reasons.
Economic, benefit, whatever. I mean, if there could be economic benefit to war or whatever.
Correct. Right. So, it's a little bit of a self-check. But the reality of your intention begins to play out on the battlefield. How do you direct the fight, et cetera? So obviously, I think the right intent could be had here. We simply want to restore peace to the region. It'd be lovely, but it seems increasingly doubtful that we can bring Putin into a sphere of friendship again, or at least, non-belligerence. But I think all those things are in place. I think the deontological categories would be in place for us to fight Russia in order to protect Ukraine. Now you get into all sorts of prudential categories, right? And one of those facts on the ground that we talked about is the fact that the Russian army is quite big. It will not beat us in a conventional fight. War is always contingent, but in all likelihood, they could not beat us in a conventional fight. They could not defeat NATO in a conventional fight. I think there's some chance that the Ukrainians are going to bloody them so much that they withdraw. That's probably hopelessly naive. But the fact remains is that they have nuclear weapons, and that has to dictate response. And I don't know that anybody is sufficiently certain that Putin would not utilize them. And so that begins to, unfortunately, limit the goods that you can do in the world. That simply becomes a sad fact of reality, that if the bully is powerful enough, then resisting the bully in certain ways might be so destructive that it's imprudent to do.